Assalamu alaikum, good evening and welcome to another episode of the Classics Show. I am your host Shabnum Riaz, and in today's show, well, we're going to talk about Rumi. Rumi, of course, who doesn't know Rumi? He was a Persian poet, Sufi mystic. He was born in the early 13th century, which is now present-day Afghanistan, and then moved on and lived the rest of his life in what is present-day Turkey. Now, to talk about Rumi today, his works, his influence on many, many people, because he is a universal poet, we have with us in our studio Mr. Munir Fayaz, who is a poet, educationist, recently authored contemporary Chinese short stories. Thank you very much for joining us here today.
Thank you very much.
So, now when we talk about Rumi, he is such, an enormous icon, an enormous figure to deal with. Tell us about his early childhood and exactly how did he become Rumi?
Rumi is a descendant of Hazrat Abu Bakr as-Siddiq Radiallahu anhu, the first caliph of Islam, and a very close companion of Hazrat Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. His father and grandfather, they were great scholars of their times, and they had great influence on the society. This was a society when the Neoplatonic debates started. And Neoplatonism, when it arrived in Islamic society, it was Muslims who discovered Plato and who started discussing it, right? Ibn Rushd being the first one who directly translated Plato into Arabic, and then it reached the other world, the Western world of Romans, and that instigated Renaissance, the Western Renaissance. They were great scholars, and they had a great knowledge of Islamic fiqh, hadith, Quran, and all those rhetorics that were in fashion in those times. Because when you talk about fiqh, fiqh is a method of jurisprudence. And for that, you must know a great deal of logics and language. So this is a byproduct of logic, language, and law. Rumi's parents and grandparents, his father and his grandfather, they were great scholars of his times in this field. And Rumi too received this formal education for his parents, and then he traveled to gain education on these topics from Iraq, Syria, and then he became a very acclaimed teacher of these fields of fiqh, mantiq, falsafa. And then the question that you asked, there was a major turn in his life. Not one major turn, but there were several small turns. But the one opportunity, one event that changed his life altogether, that was his meeting with Shams Tabriz.
Yeah.
Shams Tabriz was another great scholar, a saint. He was a saint, a true saint, who changed the course of Rumi's life from this worldly knowledge to the inside.
He is the one who connected him with his spiritual side. That is where that transcended that time in his life.
And the meeting of Shams with Rumi, that is narrated in different forms, in different ways. The first one is that Rumi one day was passing through the market with his disciples, with his students, and Shams Tabriz was sitting on the roadside. Because it was the way of Shams. He never demanded the protocol. He never observed that. He always remained in a low profile, and he didn't promote his Sufism as well. He traveled with the traders. And then in that attire, in that appearance, he taught people about the word of love. about the inner world.
Right.
He asked Rumi, okay, tell me, he came in front of his horse and stopped him and said, what is the purpose of education?
This, you're talking about the first meeting.
First meeting.
Right, okay.
There are two reports. One is this and the
Okay.
other one is that I'll tell after
Right.
this. What is the purpose of education? Rumi said the purpose of education is that you become successful in this world and the hereafter, and you follow the path of Sharia. Tabriz said no. He recited a couplet from Hakim Sinai. Hakim Sinai was another great poet and mystic. He said, Ilm kazto tirana bastanad, johil zan ilm beshavad bisyar. Knowledge that doesn't untie you, that doesn't open up you from yourself, is worse than ignorance, is far worse than ignorance. And then Rumi started thinking on it.
Unshackling of oneself. Okay.
Rumi started thinking on it. And the second event, when they met for the second time, that is reported that Rumi was teaching his students in some madrasa, some school, and there Shams Tabriz came in the appearance of a beggar, a majzoob, a person who is half mad, who doesn't understand the difference between good and bad, and a mad person, a lunatic. And he sat at the back of the class.
Okay.
And when Rumi concluded his lecture, he pointed towards the heap of books which was lying by him. He said, in cheest, what is this? And Rumi, out of his pride, because when a person is very much respected and knowledgeful, he becomes a bit proud. Rumi said, in korast ke to namidani. In korast ke to namidani. This is the work. Kar exactly means work. But when we translate it idiomatically, it will be something like, this is none of your business. You won't get it.
Okay.
Like
sort
this,
of condescending.
In korast ke to namidani. And they say that Shams went near the books and picked them up, threw them in the running water or a pond that was nearby.
Okay.
Tabriz did it. And then Rumi became very perplexed, surprised, shocked at it. And he said, what have you done? Tabriz didn't say anything. He picked those books out of the pond, and when he hit them, the dust flew out of them. There was dust on them. Now Rumi asked, in cheest, what is this? And Tabriz said, in halast ke to navidani. This is the state, the field that you don't know. Now, the difference is very short, very little. Rumi said, in karast ke to namidani. This is the work that you wouldn't know. Majzoob said, in halast ke to namidani. This is the state, the field that you don't know. And the difference between kar and hal appears very small. But this is very great, because kar is a skill that you can acquire, you can achieve, you can gain, but hal cannot be acquired. Hal is gifted by your mentor. Hal is gifted through eye, through vision. That is given by something. You cannot acquire it, even you keep on working, perspiring for whole of your life. This, when I visualize this scene between Rumi and Tabriz, I imagine that Tabriz must have looked at Rumi while saying it in halast ke to namidani, and the moment he said it, he touched the heart of Rumi.
And that's when he had conquered him as, spiritually.
Changed whole of his inner and outer world.
Right.
And then Rumi became a mystic. Rumi then became a slave of Shams Tabriz. He says it in his Diwan-e Shams, Maulavi hargiz nashud, Maulai Rum. Maulavi hargiz nashud, Maulai Rum, tha gulame Shams Tabrizi nashud. The etymology of the word Maulavi is, a scholarly man was called Maulavi in those days. A highly scholarly man was called Maulavi. He said, Maulavi, this Maulavi, I was just a scholar. I was a mere scholar, and I became Maulai Rum, the master of Rum. And this couldn't have happened without my becoming the slave of Shams-e Tabriz.
Right. Now, as you know, that's really fascinating, that the way you've depicted that meeting, and for someone to, you know, for this to have happened to somebody already who is, you know, so ready to be connected with their spiritual side, and along comes this mentor, and they realize exactly, it's that light bulb moment that, you know, so as to speak, where you understand why you were placed on this world. Now, then the relationship between Rumi and Shams, and then his separation, where it was rumored that he was murdered by one of Rumi's sons.
Reportedly, not exactly, we don't know exactly. But
It's rumored, yes, it's not, nobody knows. That is when the outpouring of grief took its form. And when Rumi was connecting with not just himself and his soul, but with so many other people. And 800 years ago, he still can connect. What is the magic behind Rumi?
That is the language of love. Even if we don't know the language, even if we don't know Persian, we read translation. If I have recited just 2-3 verses of his kalam, his poetry, and I don't know if you know Persian or not, but you might have felt it.
Yes, definitely.
Yes, and that is the magic. That is the language of love, the language of peace. Doesn't rely on words. It communicates to your inner self, and inner self is above these things. One other word about Rumi that is very necessary, I don't want to miss it. It is not like that before meeting Shams Tabriz, he was altogether a worldly man. What I have read is he had an unrest in him. He was always in an unrest. A pain, an aching, kept tormenting his soul. And in his childhood, when he was 9 or 10 years, he met another great saint, whom I regard to be one of the best persons of the history, Khaja Fariduddin Attar Rahmatullah Alayh. His book Mantiq Tair is Bible of, to me, it's Bible of spiritualism. Mantiq Tair, Conference of the Birds, translated in English. And he said, this boy is going to be a very great saint. And he gifted him with a book. Who gifts a 10-year-old boy a gift? Ilahi Name was the name of that book. And that is again a very scholarly discussion on divine principles, Ilahi Name.
Right.
And Rumi came back, and then Rumi was again, he was very attracted towards Hakim Sinai. He didn't meet him because Sinai was senior to him, and Sinai, I don't know exactly if their time overlapped, but that unrest, that pain, that manifested himself after his meeting with Tabriz. And the meeting with Tabriz is another chapter. And what you are asking, that Tabriz was murdered by...
it's rumored.
It's rumored, it's reportedly so, because no one found him. When Tabriz departed, Tabriz, people cursed Tabriz because Rumi, when he was a worldly teacher, he had so many students. And when he fell in love with Tabriz, he left those students.
Right.
And he started following Tabriz all the time.
He had confined himself.
So people wanted, the world wanted the previous Rumi.
They wanted him back.
And they cursed Tabriz for estraying him from their path. One other report is Tabriz went back to Damascus, because he came from Damascus, and he was killed there, or he vanished on the way. No one knows. But one report, as you said, his son Alauddin and those, they killed Tabriz. But there is no final word on it.
No.
This Shams Tabriz that we have in Multan, it is another person. He was 3 centuries later than that.
Okay.
These are, you know, from 13th century, and this was 16th, 17th century. He's not that Shams Tabriz who was the master of, guru of, mentor of Rumi.
Okay, the beauty of, you know, Rumi in his work, to be able to unite people of many religions, or even people who are not affiliated with any certain religion.
Yes.
the essence of the human soul. What has Rumi found to offer to us that we are so ready to gulp it all down, that we are thirsting for? You said it's the message of love. You said it's the language of love. But isn't it so much more? It's what a soul is searching for, is yearning for, completion, or an answer to why we are here in this world.
The pursuit of truth, because you just said that he talks of man without differences, without external differences. Outwardly we may appear different in color, language or dresses, but inwardly we are all the same. It is some sort of the union of human souls. And the pursuit of truth, the Creator who created us, we cannot with this worldly eye find him. So for this we must open our inward eye, the eye that sees beyond these visible things, the metaphysical realities of life. The focus of Rumi is Masnavi. Masnavi, the basic thing, the basic poetic composition of Rumi for which he is known worldwide. He's known worldwide. The Masnavi, the crux of this Masnavi is the awakening of that inside man, who is in direct obedience of Almighty, and who knows the language of the world, which is spiritual language, the language of love, peace, harmony, and the language of man. Even in today's world, if we want to be alive, we should open up that eye.
And also, you know, if you think of the world in general, there's so much noise. If it's not just noise as in a literal sense, a symbolic noise, everybody is dealing with some issue or the other. If you watch the news, you read newspapers, you do the social media is full of unrest, full of this noise pollution. And the Sufis, they had, you know, they would again and again say that silence is the language of God, and silence is where you really reconnect yourselves. So if we talk about life in today's day and age, where we are affected by so much noise pollution, if it's not just, you know, symbolically as well, how much does a person need to take time out and reconnect with themselves if we think about this school of thought?
Noise is a product of disturbance. We are internally disturbed people. And we are too much indulged in the world around us, the material world. That has created a great disturbance inside us.
And an unrest.
And an unrest. And this unrest is not the unrest which Rumi had or which these people had, creative people and these spiritual people have. This is the unrest that comes due to our own sins, our own ways of life. We should focus on the peace of soul. And the peace of soul comes with the identification and association with the Word of God. You say silence is the truth. When Gabriel, the angel, he brought revelation for Hazrat Muhammad, the Prophet ﷺ, that was not in the words. None other than these two could hear that. So that was communicated in the language of silence. When Rumi met the Tabriz for the first time in the market, people say that for 3-4 hours, they stood in front of each other and they talked without language.
Okay, that's fascinating.
They communicated without language. The person who can understand your silence is close to your soul. And God understands our silence. We must identify, we must shift ourselves towards that being, the Creator. And He'll give our language the expression, the power.
Absolutely. Okay, so I'm going to, you know, of course we're talking about Rumi, so we must read some poems from Rumi as well. Let's start with this one. All friends have vanished. Like fleeting thoughts, they scattered and left me only with the thought of my beloved. Now alone with every breath, I call the only friend of the forsaken. I was taken by the stream of love. I tasted the fruit of love's trees,
Wow.
surrounded with such tenderness, such sweetness. I even had to chase the wasps away. I was the doorkeeper at the gate of my beloved.
Wonderful.
He left, and now bewildered, I don't know which way to turn.
Wonderful.
So much
Wonderful.
emotion,
Wonderful.
so much sadness, so much
Wonderful.
pain. The depiction that you know he presents us with. Tell us how much, you know, because we have the translated works in front of us, and of course where originality, you know, that does something else to you when you're reading in the actual language. How much is basically lost in translation?
There's much that is lost in translation, but still, I was wondering at it that Rumi, he wrote in Persian, and Persian has its own dimensions. Even in one word, that can mean so many things. But when we translate something, it's my own experience as I'm doing much of the translation works these days. The content somehow is carried to another language. The poetry, the art vanishes.
So how do you make the decision between the actual message and the choice of words? How is that balance
In the
attained?
translated version.
Yes.
Yes. If I talk about myself personally, I see the tone, the tone. I don't disturb the tone, because the tone that Rumi has, or the other poets, the writers have, I prefer the words that are near to the tone. This is the decisive factor.
Okay. And that is essential, of course, in carrying on
The
that
feeling,
spirit.
the feeling,
That's
yes.
absolutely true. Okay, another one that I thought, it's a very short stanza. Dear heart, you are so unreasonable. First you fall in love, then worry about your life. You rob and steal, then worry about the law. You profess to be in love, yet still worry about what people say. And I thought that's also a wonderful description.
That's from Quatrains, Rumi's Rubaiyats.
So that as well, you know, the balance between your inner desires and what you want in life, and then the judgmental society as well.
Yes, really.
Because many of us, we do sacrifice much to the age-old words of what will people say.
Yes. Rumi didn't care about people. I tell you another very important and very interesting event. There was a person, Salahuddin Zarqub. Zarqub is the one, they were the one who beat this metal, thinned it. He was beating silver in his shop in the main market, and Rumi was passing near that. They both knew each other, but there was no intimacy between them. There's a lesson in this. Rumi was passing by the shop, and he heard the voice of thug, 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 that beating of silver. And he started dancing and he became frequent with that. People gathered there because they knew Rumi as a great scholar. It was after Shams Tabriz had vanished.
Had left, okay.
So he came at a frequency with that. And Salahuddin Zarqub also saw him doing it, and he didn't stop. In that one day, he spoiled all his silver, but he didn't stop beating it. And when he stopped, he came out. When he ended up with silver, he came out, and then they both saw each other, and they both started crying. They hugged each other and they embraced each other. They started crying, and so much so that both became unconscious and fell down. And from that time onward, Salahuddin Zarqub left his shop, and they both were together all the times. There was an intimacy, a love relation between them, not this, that before this they didn't know each other. From this tale, from this event, I get a lesson, not a necessary that you know a person from a long time. There is a moment when your mutual love is revealed.
Of course, of course.
And
A
that is
defining moment.
resonance.
Exactly. Where you
science,
can, as you
in
said,
physics.
speaking each other's language. When that language it passes the language of actual speaking and
Yes.
diction. It's something else that souls
In
speak to each
one
other.
couplet, I've just recalled one couplet from
Yeah.
Rumi, and that is what you are saying. And when great poet says, he squeezes it, skims it expressionally in some words. He says, "E khuda bin ma to genre on maqam." In Masnavi, we'll talk about Masnavi. He says, "E khuda bin ma to genre on maqam, khandaru bi harf mi ruyat kalam." Oh God, show my soul that place where kalam, speech, discourse, springs into it without word, without any
Beautiful.
word. "E khuda bin ma tu jan ran maqam, kandaru bi harf mi ruyat kalam." Rumi himself wanted to talk without words, because the
Absolutely.
words lessen your intensity.
Yes, definitely. No doubt about it. Another quatrain. If you want to do real work, give your whole heart to it. Nothing happens just by talking. A drop of water inside the house is better than a gushing river outside.
Wonderful.
Again,
Wonderful.
so deep.
Wonderful. Profound. So how can you, these thoughts are beyond time and place. These are not for one time, one era, or the people of one geography, one country. This is for everyone.
Exactly.
And even in today's world, Rumi is more relevant than ever before, because we get more attracted towards the external world, towards the world of material. So we have lost the connection with our inner self. And as a result, we have gotten far from our Creator.
He is right now, reported to be the best poet selling in the US.
Oh,
So and many celebrities have also said that his work, his poetry, has helped them through moments of sadness. So also his merger of poetry, music, dance, as well as you just said. How much has that made him as an immortal figure when it comes to literature?
Rumi was always an immortal figure. It is not now that he's selling in the West. Only yesterday, one of my friend teacher, he was telling me that in 90s, when The Alchemist was published, someone told him that there are two mystic circles, spiritual circles in Brazil, and Paulo Coelho is associated with one of those circles, and Rumi is the central theme of that circle. They say he keeps visiting that circle.
Okay.
So he was commanded by Rumi to compose this and create this novel, The Alchemist, which became his bestseller. Still, that is one of the best novels of the previous centuries. Rumi is very relevant. His message, we can translate it in any language. I have read Urdu, English translations of that. And the message doesn't go away anywhere. That happens with many writers, many other writers, that when they are translated, they lose their vigor, their strength. They are not properly communicated. This was the message of love. You translate it in any language of the world, the message will remain there.
And in fact, as we just said, even without the words.
Yes, and in today's world, I believe we need Rumi. West needs Rumi more, because they've become very addicted to this material world. They need some insight to live by, to live with, to live for.
Yeah, the consumerism, but then if you look at our part of the world as well, we're learning very fast.
Yes.
We're adapting to all that as well. There's hardly a house where you'll see children or people who are not in the effects of consumerism and falling prey to gadgets and technical things as opposed to material desires.
And this is very true, as today kids don't love their parents for their parents. They love their parents because they have the power to buy them things.
True, absolutely.
and Rumi, this parents mother son relationship, he in another couplet he says, "Daste har na ahl bimarat khunad." The hand, the treatment of every ignorant being, ignorant person can make you sick. Sui mother aake thi marat khunat. Come towards your mother. She'll take care of you. And the mother is this spirituality. Spiritual world is the mother. This is because it nurses your soul. It flourishes it, it nourishes it, it feeds it.
That is what it seems that people are very, devoid of. And when you talk to people, and as you know, that everything becomes relevant, things merge in together. The noise, the disturbance, the material lure for things, which are, contentment. How much contentment? How do you measure contentment? Because you want something, and especially if we talk about materialistic terms, that those few minutes, maybe, I don't know, maybe a few hours or a few days, depending on whatever you think, and you get that contentment, which is short-lived. So this is what basically people are yearning for.
This contentment is a very poignant theme of Masnavi. Masnavi, the long poem, the six volume poem. Rumi says that contentment comes out of thankfulness, when we become thankful to God. When we know that our every action of us is depending on God's will for its becoming successful, fruitful. And this very appropriate couplet, it says, Gar tawakkal mi khuni, dar khar kun. If you want to rely, tawakkal is when we rely on God for every action. Gar tawakkal mi khuni, dar khar kun. Pas takhiye dar jabbar kun. First you work and then you put your faith on God. Rumi's, from here we have another very good lesson, that Rumi doesn't say that you leave the works of the world and you just turn yourself towards this mystic, invisible, metaphysical world. He says, khar kun. First you work. Pas, after that. Takhiye dar jabbar kun. That Jabbar is one of the names of God, 99 names. He says, first you work and then rely on God for the result. Contentment comes after it.
Exactly.
When we work and then we rely on God for the result, Allah Almighty, and then whatever comes, we take it not as a fruit of our effort, but as a gift of God.
Devotion, dedication, hard work. Exactly,
Yes.
that message, that's absolutely true. Another poem that is relevant to what exactly you're saying. When you plant a tree, every leaf that grows will tell you what you sow will bear fruit.
Wow.
So if you have any sense, my friend, don't plant anything but love. You show your worth by what you seek. Water flows to those who want purity. Wash your hands of all desires and come to the table of love. Do you want me to tell you a secret? The flowers attract the most beautiful lover with their sweet smile and scent. If you let God weave the verse in your poem, people will read it forever.
Wow.
That is extreme.
Immortal words.
Exactly.
The message is never getting old. This will be new. The more we are going towards the material world, the more we need these words. About this poem Masnavi, that you have just read the extract from the Masnavi. Masnavi, Maulvi Rumi started composing this Masnavi when he was 62 years old. And this was a time when Tabriz had left. When Salahuddin Zarqub, he passed away, and Maulvi again became alone. He didn't have any soulmate, we say, to be very appropriate, soulmate. There was another man, his name was Hasamuddin Chalpi. And I thank that man, because he was the man who copied this, who wrote down this all Masnavi. Rumi just spoke it, uttered it, and he was all the time sitting by him and he transcribed it. If Hasamuddin Chalpi wasn't there, we couldn't have this written text of the Masnavi. In the middle, Hasamuddin Chalpi's wife, she died, and he remained absent for a year or so. And in that year, Rumi didn't dictate even a single line.
Okay.
And then Hasamuddin Chalpi, after the second volume of the Masnavi, Hasamuddin Chalpi became ill. He fell ill. And Rumi, for 2 years, he was there on his bed, and Rumi didn't dictate even a single verse. He mentions him in all volumes except the first one. He mentions Hasamuddin in all the volumes. He say, for example, when they started writing this third volume of the Masnavi, he says, "Ay Ziaul Haq, Hasamuddin Biyar, bring here. In Sivam Daftar, ke sunnat shud se bar. Bring to me the third volume. Let's start the third volume, because doing a thing thrice is the sunnah, is the way of the Holy Prophet ﷺ. As we perform ablution, we wash our organs, body parts thrice. This is sunnah. The first is the way of God, is the order of God is just once. We do it thrice. So Maulvi says, bring the third volume, let's start it, because doing a thing thrice is the way of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. And then he says, "Ee Ziaul Haq Hasamuddin Tui." It is you, Ziaul Haq, the light of God. Hasamuddin, it is you, indeed it is you. Ke guzashtaz meh banurat masnavi, that from your light, Hasamuddin, from your light, this Masnavi has become more illuminating than the moon itself.
Right.
So this is, now I come to another very important point. This is the spiritual love, the metaphysical love, and blah blah, whatever I'm saying from right since the beginning of this show. Now we get the point that this metaphysical, this spiritual love is again an outcome, is an offspring, is a byproduct of human love. He falls in love with Shams Tabriz. He composes 2800 ghazal volume Shams-e Tabriz, Diwan-e Shams. I myself been thinking that it was a poetry of Shams Tabriz. But then someone told me, a teacher of Persian, he told me 10, 12, 15 years back that it is the poetry of Maulvi Rumi. And he dedicated that whole 2800 or so books, more than 100,000 couplets, to his teacher, to his mentor, Shams-e Tabriz. Then he falls in love with Salahuddin Zarqub, and he discovers new horizons of metaphysical journey. And then he falls in love with this Hasamuddin Chalpi, and then composes an eternal thing. And that starts with the first line of that, the first couplet of that is, Vishnu azni chun hikayat mi kunad. Listen from the flute. What story is it telling? Vishnu azni chun hikayat mi kunad. What story is it telling? Was judai ha shikayat mi kunad. This point you discussed in the start of the program, that he translated his pains into music, into poetic compositions, and that are inspiring whole of the world to the word of love. Was judai ha shikayat mi kunad. This piece of wood flute that we turn into flute, basically it is cut off from a tree, a branch. So this has the wounds of partition, separation from its origin. And then the body of flute, if you look at it, it is pierced on all, everywhere. There are holes. The holes are symbolic of wounds. So we should learn from the flute to transform our pains into music. Our pains should delight other people. We shouldn't be grieving on them. We should have the art of translating our pains into pleasures for others. Vishnu azni chun hikayat mi kunad.
Which again is an amazing thought, and it's so profound, and it's so deep.
And
There's
it's the
layer
first
upon
line, it's
layer.
the first couplet. It's the very first couplet.
Layer upon layer. Now, we talk about his death as well, and a poem here. If you bake bread with the wheat that grows on my grave, you'll become drunk with joy, and even the oven will recite ecstatic poems. If you come to pay your respects, even my gravestone will invite you to dance. So don't come without your drum. Don't be sad. You have come to God's feast. Even death cannot stop my yearning for the sweet kiss of my love. Tear my shroud and wear it as a shirt. The door will open and you'll hear the music of your soul fill the air. I am created from the ecstasy of love, And when I die, my essence will be released like the scent of crushed rose petals. My soul wants to leap and join the towering soul of Shams.
Ah,
Another beautiful.
very moving. Even in
yes.
translation, I'm in a habit of reading it in original form, but even the translation is moving.
Exactly. And so when we talk about Rumi's death, and even in his death, he lives on. His tomb as well, on his death anniversary, many people converge, their heads of state as well, and they have
In Konya, in his
yes,
shrine.
exactly, and then they have a whole sort of festival there as
Yes.
well, the whirling dervishes. Tell us about that.
There's a great festival, yes. They copy the way Rumi twined, circle, danced, and the way Rumi wore his dress and everything. They imitated. And there is, I don't know, people say, I haven't
The
visited
placing of the
place.
hands is also supposed to be symbolic as well,
Yes.
with one hand placed up
Yes,
to
yes, up
and one down
yes,
with the
that
earth.
is the
So-
communication of God's message to the people.
Exactly.
Where we are receiving it the way is the message from this side, and we are giving it to the down, to the earthly people,
Yeah.
to the way of the world. Rumi he's living, he's everywhere. I tell you, Shabnam, or poet Iqbal, Allama Iqbal, our national poet, and he started composing poetry in Persian, and he was in the impression of Rumi. The first poem that he composed, Asrar-o Ramuz, Asrar-e Khudi, there are two parts of it, Asrar-e Khudi and Ramuz-e Bekhudi. He calls Rumi Pir-e Rumi, his mentor, his peer, and he calls himself Murid-e Hindi. I am the Hindi of Indian, Murid of that soil. He is the peer of Rome. And there is a very important, very wonderful poem of Iqbal in Bale Jibreel, Pir o Murid, and he asks different questions in Urdu. Iqbal himself asks different questions in Urdu, and then he seeks answers from Rumi's Masnavi, and they are both combined in that one poem. And even in his other poem, great poem, epic proportion poem, Javid Name, when he travels to the world hereafter, these two persons, Rumi and Sinai, they're always with him, showing him the way to God. So that is another very wonderful poem, Javid Name. Iqbal himself, he sought guidance from the poetry of Rumi. Everywhere in his poetry, he calls himself, Iqbal says, Masnavi-e Manavi-e Maulvi. Maulvi, the name of that Masnavi is Masnavi-e Manavi. The Manavi in itself is a very profound word, because Mana in Persian, when we call Isme Mana, it means abstract noun. Masnavi-e Manavi means the Masnavi, the long poem in the form of couplets, rhyming couplets, that tells you about the inside. Mana is abstract, or the meaning. There are two meanings, meaning and abstract. So this is the meaning of man is the life is soul. So the title Masnavi-e Maulvi, Iqbal says, Masnavi-e Manavi-e Maulvi, Hast Quran dar Zuban-e Pahlavi. The original, the first name of Persian language is Pahlavi. He says this language, this book of Masnavi-e Manvi by Maulvi Rumi, this is the Quran in Persian language. This is the Quran in Persian language. He was such a great admirer of Rumi, and he visited that place. He went there, he saw that, and he all the times he kept weeping. I think when I go to Iqbal's tomb, shrine I may call it, I can't stop my tears. And I was telling my father yesterday that if sometimes I had the chance to visit Rumi's, I don't know if I would come out of that place or not. That is such a great...
So true. His main innovations, if we talk about those, his ability to speak directly to the reader, his use of imagery, also his love to teach. You can feel it all in his poetry.
The most beautiful thing of Masnavi that I like, ghazals, in his ghazals are especially of Diwan-e-Shams, they don't fall with that convention. Because his ghazals are of one tone. He starts with a feeling, and till the end he carries it. Whereas in ghazal we can have different room in each couplet. Rumi doesn't do this. And even in his whole of those Diwan-e-Shams, we have a feeling dominating. The feeling of love and spirituality. Diwan-e-Shams, he says, من مست و تو دیوانه ما را که برد خانه صد بار تو را گفتم کم خورد و سه پیمانه. Now this drinking thing, this is not the drinking that we say is bad. This is the drink of soul that we drink to purgate ourselves of these
toxic
elements of our soul. در شهر یکی کس را هوشیار نوی. I don't see anyone in the city wise, sober. هر یک بدتر از دیگر شوریده و دیوان. Everyone is worse than the other. Mad, lunatic. He calls the people indulged in the worldly activities mad.
And in fact, whereas you know, he's also accepting the fact that it's the other way around, that the people are actually thinking of him as being the mad person.
So he mocks them.
Yeah.
And in Masnavi, what he acquires, the style, is he tells a very small tale or a long tale. Sometimes that tale goes on to 10-15 pages. And in that tale, there are portions where he talks about the words of wisdom. Then he concludes, we're getting short of time, or I'll tell you some of his tales that
we are unfortunately a bit out of time. I've just been told that it's time now to wind up the program. Thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been a pleasure indeed to be able to talk about such a, you know, such a personality that it's hard to sum up. In fact, impossible to sum up in just 1 hour of a program. But thank you very much for being with us here today.
Thank you very much, Shabnum. You people invite me and you give me a chance an opportunity to talk to people about these people, these great people.
I think this is a great service to everybody, you know, for people who are in search, we all are, of many meanings to life. So this is one of those
Why shouldn't we conclude it on this 4 couplets of Rumi? If you could translate it, I request you to translate it.
Right, okay. Will you be reading
Yes,
the rest?
I'll be reading the Persian text and then we go with the translation one by one. Rumi says, Shad bash ey ishq khush saudai ma. Shad bash ey ishq khush saudai ma. Ey tabibe jumle illat-hai ma.
Hail, O love, my happy madness, O the physician of all my ills.
Jism khak az ishq bar aflaq shud. Jism khak az ishq bar aflaq shud. Kuh dar raghs amad o chalak shud.
The earthly body reached the skies due to love. Mountains started dancing and became conscientious.
عقل آمد دین و دنیا شد خراب. عقل آمد دین و دنیا شد خراب. عشق آمد در دو عالم کامیاب.
Rationality came and both material and spiritual worlds were ruined. Love was victorious in both the worlds.
زندگی آمد برای بندگی. زندگی آمد برای بندگی. زندگی بی بندگی شرمندگی.
Life came for the purpose of devotion. Life without devotion is a shame. So with those words, we come to the end of today's program. I thank my guests very much for coming here and being part of the show. And it's been wonderful, a really spiritual, uplifting program that we've been able to present to our viewers today. We really hope that you have also gained some of the pleasure and the soothing feeling of today's program. Until next time, bye-bye. Stay happy.
खुद कूजा करो खुद गिले कूजा मैंने देखा कि खुद ही बर्तन है कूजा यानी बर्तन खुद बर्तन है खुद बर्तन का बनाने वाला है हमने देखा तुझे आंखों की सियाह पुतली में हमने देखा तुझे आंखों की सियाह पुतली सात पर्दों में तुझे पर्दानशी देख लिया सात पर्दों में तुझे पर्दानशी देख लिया हर लहजा बशकलां पुते अय्यार बरामद दिल मुर्द निहाशुद हरदम बलिबासे दिगरा यार बरामद हरदम बलिबासे दिगरा यार बरामद
Thank you.